This is Brad at Attitude RC. We are going to do part 2 of our P-47 rebuild, and this is the wing. As you can see, this thing is an absolute mess. Just going to kind of get my wires out of the way, pulled the aileron Y cable out. Looks like I'm going to have to check my wiring as well. I'm going to pull this wing apart, and then we're going to start fixing it. Sorry about the camera work, I was holding it. And the spars look like they're in pretty good shape. They're not broken. They don't feel wobbly at all. They think they're pretty solid still in there. I can move them side to side, but that's only because the foam's not attached anymore. We got some cracks in the front, but my big concern is the wing box. The wing box was broken on the opposite side that the wing shredded. You can see it's got a lot of big gap there, makes that whole side of the wing weak. So if we don't fix that, we're going to have more problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push 1 or 2 rods down through this whole thing to make it more rigid. What I've done is I've sharpened a rod up. This is just a piece of dowel rod, and I'm just going to push it down into the foam through the whole thing. I'm going to get it pretty deep. See how far we can get it in there. Well, it's not quite deep enough. I'll pop that down farther. That's pretty good. Now let's mark it. And I'll pull this out and check to make sure it went deep enough. Yeah, that should do. That went pretty far down in there. That'll go past where there was cracked. Should strengthen up that whole area. Now, one thing you're going to want to do is make sure you got a good hot glue gun. I like using hot glue because it actually expands the foam when it goes in, so it helps fill that gap with the foam itself as well as the hot glue. So I'm going to run hot glue right in this channel right here and right down through here. We're going to fill up those pieces first. And down under there. I'm going to push a whole bunch of glue down in the main hole that I'm going to push that rod down through. A couple good pumps into there. And then let's get that rod pushed down through. The hot glue makes it expand in there, so it's a little bit harder to get it in. I'm just going to use the other piece I cut off to push it down in. And that looks about good. I'll pinch that whole wing together and let that hot glue cool. Now, there's still a weak spot right there along that crack, and I want to make sure that's nice and strong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a rod in on an angle down into the wing to strengthen that up. Just make sure you don't go too much from into one side or the other so you don't push through the wing. That should do it. That's down through the crack. So that's the mount point to the wing, so we want that nice and strong too. So put a little glue in that crack there, as well as fill that hole up with glue, and then we'll push the rod down in. This one's going to hang out a little bit, but I will cut that off later in the project. And I'll cut that out with my Dremel or just a pair of side cutters. And there it is. That is actually pretty solid. You can see where the rod came through down on the bottom there. That's a little bit of crack. I'll just fill that real quick. Yeah, this is not too bad. This came out really nice. Check how rigid it is. Yeah, that's pretty good. Tweak it a little bit. That wing's pretty strong. Let's clean out that hole where we're going to put the servo leads through. Not too shabby. This thing might get fixed yet. Check it. And that wing is pretty strong. Yeah, that'll work. All right, now the messy part of the wing. I'm just going to start building it up one piece at a time. I'm going to put the landing gear in. And once again, hot glue gun. Very hot, so you have time to work with the piece once it's in there before the glue sets up. Also, if the glue's hot enough, it will also help expand some of the foam. And we're going to slowly start building this wing up one piece at a time. Get that landing gear in, or the landing gear mount. You can see it had a little bit of foam on top of that gear too, which filled up that hole in the wing. We're still going to have some stuff to deal with here. And now let's start putting this back together. You can see where it lines up. Seems to fit nice. It was a good clean break. Oh, we're just going to start filling the gaps. And we're going to go along this back crack. I like to start with a wobbly piece and start attaching it to the more solid pieces as I go. And the back part of the wing is fairly solid, the part right in between those two spars. Give it a good amount of time to cool. You don't want to release the pressure on it too early. Yeah, we might have to fill that. We'll see how it comes out. See how it stretches out. Now we're just going to start gluing up the rest of the pieces. There's not really a lot of, that's really not a big supporting piece. There's not a lot of force on this area. It's not super structural right there. You can see how thin the foam is. But we still want it in there. It'll help with the rigidity of the wing, and it'll just look nice. Get that filled, wipe off your excess. There'll be less sanding we have to do in the future. Now here's one thing I do. Cracks that are really small, I push the hot glue gun down into the crack. The tip actually melts some of the foam away, and then you can backfill that in with hot glue. And just keep building that wing up. It's a slow process, but the more you clear off as you go, the less end work you'll have with sanding. It's looking pretty nice. Once again, we're going to push some glue into some cracks there. That front wing box on that side was actually pretty solid considering all the damage on that side of the wing. So I didn't put any extra rods into that. Now I used wood rods when I was doing mine, when I was building up the wing. You can use carbon fiber. You could use anything you want. I just had the wood ones around and, well, they just worked well. Now I'm going to test fit this wing, make sure everything still lines up good after I glued those pieces together. And it looks like it does. Seems to fit pretty nice, and we got a lot of surface area there. Let's pull this apart and glue it up. Now you got to work kind of fast because there's going to be a lot of glue on here and a lot of surface area. All that surface area we just fill up with glue. Sorry about my camera work. And make sure you get glue on both spars. and those will squeeze all around that spar and get it put back together pretty quick so the glue doesn't harden. Luckily, this whole front part of the wing came off really nice. It broke well, so it does go together really nice, and make sure you hold your pressure on that. That plastic's bowed up a little bit. We'll have to put some glue down in the seam there. And the hot glue actually helps the foam come back to its original shape as well. You're gonna have to hold it there, risk burning your fingers. And once again, you wipe off, the more excess you wipe off now, the less sanding you'll have. Now this area right in between the flap and the aileron was a little bit weak. So what I did was I cut a groove across the crack that was there. And then I took a bamboo rod, and it's just a bamboo barbecue skewer. And I set it down in that groove, measured it, cut it, and it pressed in really tight, and that's the way you want it. I just cut out a little bit of foam, just like in a V shape, so it does fit in there nice and tight. Let's pop that out. It's tight enough that I had to get my pliers to pop it out. And then we're going to fill it with some hot glue. And once it's filled with the hot glue, push that little guy back in. And it'll be a little bit tighter now because the foam started to expand, but that's good. It'll just strengthen up. And I pushed it down so it was almost even with maybe just a little bit below the surface of the foam. And then I just put another little bit of hot glue on top of it. Now this part, we had lost some foam here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut away some of the broken foam to get a nice little square, a nice area to actually glue new foam to. And then we're going to cut out the back in a nice square as well. And what this does is allows us to easily make a piece of foam to go in there. To cut that weird angle that's on right now would be tough. And it's nice if you see I got one of the panel lines right there I used to actually cut my foam out. Now, one of the foam I like to use is foam they usually pack. It seems Dell computers would actually really pack in really nice foam. So I try and keep a piece of that around just for this reason. And it's a pretty dense foam, fairly similar to what's being used on the plane. So I just cut a piece to fit in there nicely. And this piece already had a channel in it that seemed to fit perfect right around the right along the spar. And put a large amount of glue on there. And glue that piece in. It doesn't matter if it overhangs a little, we're going to trim that away. So to trim it away, I like to use a long blade on my X-Acto knife. And then just really slow, just cut it away. And then just trim it up. And keep trimming until you find the contour, till you match the contour of the wing. And once again, we will have filler to go on top of this. So if it's not perfect, that's not the end of the world. You can sand and fill it. And go slow so you don't cut into your wing. And it's okay to make multiple cuts on this. Many small cuts instead of one big cut. And once you get it the way you like it. Oh, found one more spot here. I could use a little more glue. Especially around that landing gear mount. I want that fairly tight. I don't want to have to shim it, or I want that to stay in. I actually might put some more, might drill into that landing gear and put some more rods through that to hold it into the foam a little better. Found another spot here that I could put some extra filler in. So I glued that piece in. Just to make sure I don't get that landing gear mount to shift at all. Pretty happy with how this wing's looking though. It's coming out nice. And once again, you can just trim it down the same way we did the other one. Take the long knife and trim it away. This, because it was a small piece, was moving a little bit more than I liked. There we go. Good shape. That'll work. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Now, my most hated part. Sanding and filling. So anything you can cut off now that's a little bit big, any of that hot glue that globbed out, be a good time to trim it up. Just go slow so you don't cut into the wing. Yeah, that came out pretty nice. Fairly solid wing. A couple more spots I could fill. Get that hot glue down in those cracks. Fill it up. It'll just make it a little more rigid, and have to use less filler on it. I don't know what's really heavier, the filler or the hot glue, but at least the hot glue helps. And sanding. And filling. I hate this part. But if you want the paint to look halfway decent, you need to do it. I do use a latex filler, so it does move with the plane a little bit. It takes a little longer to dry, but it does a good job. Pretty happy with how this wing turned out. You can see it's rigid, solid. We got nice sand on it. Surface looks okay, but the whole thing has just really came out pretty good. All in all, I think it will be a nice solid wing for us. The place the landing gear mounts in right here, solid. I tweaked it 3 or 4 times. I can't get it to move too much, so it's just as solid as this landing gear, which now that I look at it, looks like it may need some repair down here too, so I may have to glue that back in. I don't know if you can see that really well. Put it like that. You can see it pulling away just a little bit there. We'll try and get that fixed too. Put some glue under there, tighten it up. But all in all, it came out really nice. Really happy with it. Now we just gotta get some paint on it, and that'll be our next step, paint, and then rehook up all the servos and rerun all the wires and put the gear back on. Thank you very much for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe. If you like the content, I'll keep doing more of this. If you want to see something else, put it down in the comments. Thanks a lot.